All right. Welcome to, what month is this? September? Welcome to the September meeting of Wake Up Newport. We're pleased to have you here this morning to hear something from one of our newly appointed superheroes in the city. And so we're excited to be able to have the program. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. My name is Rush Hill, and I am chairman of the Civic Affairs Committee. Got it right once. Yeah. And so with that, it's my first requirement to bring up the CEO, president, and dictator of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, Steve Rosansky. Yes.
Thank you, Rush. Thank you. Dictator. I'll have to have a new name tag made up. Good morning. Yeah, good evening. I feel like I think I got up. It was still dark out, so. I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and as Rush said, welcome to our September meeting of Wake Up Newport. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Rush to come back up here and introduce our speaker. At the end of the meeting, we have a few things going on this month that I'll tell you about, and sit back and enjoy the rest of the show, the ride.
Well, we're very pleased to have with us this morning our new Chief of the Fire Department, and I'll give you a little bit of background about him. I think you'll find that, and I'll say it at the beginning and I'll say it at the end, our city manager could not have made a better selection for our new Chief of Fire. Jeff Boyles feels that he was born into a life of public service, particularly fire. He was his dad was a fire chief and retired, I guess, just before you were born. Or right before, yeah. He was getting ready for the panic. But Jeff began his fire service back in 1994, and he worked in the City of Fontana for the San Bernardino County Fire Department. That fire department happens to be the 5th biggest fire station in California. And of course from that he gained invaluable experiences of rather complex and dynamic situations. In 1998 he took a leave from that and decided to go back and get some more of his important education. And he went to the Paramedic school in Orange County, and then in 2000 he started 19 years ago with the City of Newport Beach. During his time with the City of Newport Beach, he has been, are you ready? Firefighter, paramedic, captain, arson investigator, urban search and rescue team member, battalion chief, department training chief, assistant chief. They left out advisor to the Pope. But he is now our fire chief. Chief Boyles has been highly involved in both Newport Beach and Huntington Beach. He has coached, managed 21 youth baseball teams and 6 Pop Warner football teams. So we've got an athlete as well. Professionally, he served as the Newport Beach Firefighters Association Vice President and President, President of the Orange County Training Officers, Orange County Area Director of Cal Chiefs co-chair of the Orange County EMS Committee. He's a board member of the Chamber of Newport Beach Leadership Tomorrow group, and he is a member of the board of directors of Speak Up Newport, and he's on the city's 1-1 Marine Committee. He holds an associate degree in fire technology and paramedicine, and a bachelor's of science degree in public administration with a minor in psychology. That's so he can work with Dr. Rosansky. And that's all from Long Beach State University. Most recently, he graduated on the dean's list from Long Beach State with his master's degree in public administration. And he has been to incident management training at Texas A&M, the National Fire Academy at Emmitsburg, Maryland, and as well as Leadership Tomorrow here in Newport Beach and Cal State Fullerton's leadership cohort. He is a state certified instructor in the strike management team. We're talking about a guy that pretty qualified, I think, and I think that we're all very pleased in the decision that our city manager made. So please give a morning welcome to Chief Jeff Boyles.
Thank you, Rush. So my name's Jeff Boyles. I'm the new fire chief. I'm on month 2 now. I have to actually look at my watch to see how long I've been doing this. And it's funny, he read all that at my badge painting. My aunt, when we were done, my aunt says, "I didn't realize you did all that. No wonder why you're always so tired." And I said, I'm not tired. I do sleep. I just can't get my golf handicap under 30 these days. So I golf about once a year because I'm doing so many other things. But anyhow, there are enough hours in the day. You just have to figure out how you're going to allocate them. Andy, we do have a couple of drones. I didn't realize I needed insurance for that, so now you have me worried. My mind started to wander. We're putting them up over the beach and over the wildland areas. Okay, so my name's Jeff, and I'm going to take you through a real quick little journey of who I am, although I think Rush just highlighted most of the things that I've been doing with the fire department, but I'll just do a quick highlight of where I come from and who I am so you can kind of get a feel for my background. And like Rush said, I started out in the fire service. There I am in the top left. That was my first crew back in Fontana in 1994. I was 21 years old. But my parents bought a condominium down on the Balboa Peninsula, the Rendezvous condos in the 80s. And I moved in there about 15 minutes after I graduated high school with some buddies and went to Cal State Long Beach. So last night I'm listening to the speakers come up to the podium and say things like, I've been a resident for 22 years, or I've been a resident for 25 years, and I haven't been here as long as Seymour Beek, but I do like to think that I've been a resident for 29 years. I moved in 1991 full-time. I was down on the peninsula. I stayed there until I was married. My wife and I were there for a couple of years, and we bought into Newport Shores for our first actual house, and came to Newport, and I'll take you there in a second, but that was in the year 2000 before I moved to Huntington Beach in 2004. So there's been a cross or a synergy, if you will, since 1991 permanently, and my family still lives in town. My brother went to Newport Harbor. So when I did my background for Newport Beach, they didn't have to look very far. They just went to NBPD and said, what kind of a kid was he when he was 18 and 19? So I passed. But as Rush said, in 1998, I was a full-time firefighter. I took some time off from Fontana. I was living in Balboa. I went down to Saddleback Paramedic program, and when you live in Newport Beach, you get to do your internship close to home. So I asked to go to Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, or Huntington Beach, and they sent me right here. So this is Ed Wick with the mustache. He's still one of our fire captains. He's still around. The other guy over here, Rich Thomas, retired about 10 years ago, but that's me. I know it looks like maybe I'm in junior high or high school, but I was actually 25 or 26 in that photo, and was lucky enough to where Newport actually hired me. So here we are. Now I'm in Newport. That's my background. That's where I came from. We have our operating principles that Chief Tim Riley started up back in the 90s of safety, service, and professionalism. And I just want to jump into that, just briefly highlight that nothing has changed from that perspective. And there was an article in the Orange County Register last week about how I bring a unique perspective to this department. And I think what they were trying to craft the message there was that when I was hired here 19 years ago, there were still people on the job that were hired in the 60s. And now we have people that were literally born in the late 90s, not quite the 2000s yet, but we're talking a big generational gap there from the World War II era, guys that were coming out of World War II or Vietnam, and now I don't even think it's millennials anymore. I think they've gone on to another generation. So a lot of the conversations that I've been having with Grace and with others when we were going through the hiring process is how do you bridge that gap in the workforce? So those are one of the things I'm looking at. Although safety, service, and professionalism doesn't go away. We're lucky here, we're fortunate, I should say, that we do have the funding for good equipment, good training, good staffing levels. So we keep our safety, and our service is the big thing that I've been talking to those about. If you've come to any of my talks, I'm talking about internal and external customer service. And there's a concept out there called the Platinum Services, which is an offtake of the golden rule, the old golden rule that we've all heard about, treat others the way you want to be treated. What we're trying to do, and I know our partners in public safety with the police department as well, is treat others the way they want to be treated. So it's a little bit of a different paradigm shift. Rather than just show up and say, I've been trained, this is what I do. It's I've been trained to help you solve your problem the way you want it resolved. So those are some of the things we're looking at doing. We have 38 firefighters on duty every day, 24/7, 365 here in Newport Beach. We have about 88,000 permanent residents with surges, and obviously you know this with the beaches. We have 8 fire stations, and I don't know if I have that on my slide. I think I do. I want to show you where they all are. Yeah, I'll get to it. But we have 8 fire stations, and that's something that people typically don't always understand is how it works. We have 2 on the peninsula. We have one up on Irvine Avenue near the Costa Mesa border, one here in Fashion Island, one on Balboa Island, one out in Newport Coast, one in Corona del Mar. So we do have them spread out. And the majority of our calls, this comes as no surprise, are medical related and have some sort of medical component. And when I say medical component, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody called and they're having a heart attack or they can't breathe. What it means is you've been in a car accident and we have a ladder truck that shows up, and if you need to be extricated or cut out of the vehicle, we'll use our different tools and we can cut you out, but there's also the medical part to it too. So our paramedics work as part of our fire department. So our paramedics are full-time firefighters that are integrated into our system. I believe that it's the best system you're gonna find, and I also know that from a fire chief level, when I travel up and down the state and even here in Orange County, other fire chiefs are trying to get to the model that we already have, which is our full-time people show up to your house and take care of you in whatever capacity you need, and then we take you off to whether it's Hoag Hospital, which is the majority of the time, or a trauma center, and we own that call from start to finish. We don't hand it off, and there isn't that disjointedness of putting you in a different vehicle with different people that we don't know and we don't train and we don't employ. So having said that, our total calls last year were, I don't know if you can see that, but 12,360 calls. And we call them calls, some call them incidents, some call them responses. We've historically just called them calls here, but EMS, 9,184 of those. 9,184 times one of our 3 paramedic ambulances went to a resident or a visitor here in Newport Beach, and most of the time, and I don't have the stat off the top of my head, transported them to a hospital. So that's, if you break that down in minutes and hours of time running around town of picking somebody up and taking them to the hospital, that ends up becoming a lot. Now fires, 379. Those are 379 actual combustible fires where something happened, whether it was food that was burning or a big 2-3 alarm type of fire. But the fires, although the percentage has gone down, and this is an important point I like to make, the percentage has gone down, but the people in the infrastructure is increasing. So we're seeing the development and the increase in buildings. We're not losing buildings, right? We're building more. So we're still tasked with protecting all those. If you want to look at it from the standpoint of an insurance agency, we sort of do that. We're there. We still have a responsibility to protect the infrastructure. So I know at times, and I'll do it in my own head too, well, there's less fires. Do we need less fire engines? Do we need less firefighters? The answer is no, because we're We're actually a standing army, if you think of it, and we're deploying out to traffic accidents, we're deploying out to medical calls, we're deploying out to service calls, we're deploying out to all these other things, but we're ready for a fire when it occurs as well. This is just some quick stats that I threw together because you can see over here to the far right, 2013, our call load, 9,464 to 2018. That's a 30% increase over those 5 years from 14 to 18. So it's about 6% a year that it's increasing. And I don't know why that is, because that's not in direct correlation with our population. So sometimes just population alone doesn't equate to the amount of calls. I don't know if that's, last night we had the special meeting with homelessness. There is certainly an increase in our responses to homelessness, but that doesn't account for thousands. So is it because people are becoming more used to utilizing the 911 system? Is it because we have more visitors? That I don't know, but I do know that our call load is increasing. And our actual 38 firefighters on duty is a little bit less than it was 10 years ago. We had 39. So our staffing level has remained relatively constant, but our call load, as you can see, is increasing. So what does that mean? I'll take you really quick through what we have. We have engine companies. So you'll see a fire engine, and I'll blow through this really quick just so you have a quick understanding. What time do we have till noon? Dinner at 7, okay. So the engine, if I say an engine or a truck or a medic van, we have 3 pieces of apparatus. This is a fire engine that you'll see. It has 3 firefighters on it. Sometimes the PAU is a Paramedic Assessment Unit, and BLS is Basic Life Support. And we have those spread throughout the city. 4 of them, 5 of them have a paramedic on it. 3 of them do not. So they respond. We have a fire engine in all 8 of the stations, and the goal there is to get somebody to a house. If you think about it, I have a live map on my screen in my office that just shows where all the movement is, because we keep track of where the engines are. And the goal is to always have constant coverage, just like a police officer when they're in their beat as well. We can get a fire engine somewhere in less than 5 minutes. We're trying to do it in 4. And the theory there really is, if you're not breathing, the difference between 4 minutes and 6 minutes is a long time. That's when you start to get hypoxic, you start to experience brain tissue death, cardiac death, and things like that. So if we can get these guys there in 4 minutes to start giving you some oxygen or start giving you some therapy, then the paramedics, because there's only 3 of them, tend to take a little bit longer. Their response time is actually about 8 or 9 minutes. But we're putting paramedics on our fire engines to effect that rescue quicker. Oh, there's a fire engine. So that's an engine. We'll say an engine. Then there's 2 ladder trucks in the city. So this is what we call a truck. And these are the long hook and ladder that's commonly referred to as. And we have them on Lido, and we have them in Fashion Island. So they're on both sides of the city. And these guys are the ones that are trained with the technical rescues, are the ones that do the rope, the cliff rescues. I think I have a picture of that later on down the line. The cars, that when we need to extricate or cut somebody out of a car, these are the guys that do that. They have all the big tools for that. These are the guys that are climbing up on the ladders and cutting the holes in the roof when you turn on the news and they say there's a fire in LA, and you see guys up on a roof with a chainsaw and you're trying to figure out, what are they doing there? That's these guys. Then we have 3 of these paramedic ambulances, full-time with firefighter paramedics on it. We actually have a couple extra that we'll put into service that we will utilize later, but those are just really to utilize as a transport system. These 3 right here are the ones that we have, one in Lido, one in Fashion Island, and one in Corona Del Mar right now. So they're spread, they're blanketed throughout the city, and they're the ones that, so inside the back of that, I don't think I have a pointer here. Oh, I do. Inside these compartments back here, they keep all their breathing apparatus, their turnouts, all that. So these guys can put everything on. You see their helmets up there right in the dash? They like to do that because, reminds them that their firefighters are driving around. So they still have their helmet. They'll hop out. They'll fight fires too. I did it. I remember it. There's a little bit of pride in having that helmet up there on the dash. So these guys they're kind of the do-it-alls. They start an IV. They could put a tube down your airway if you're not breathing. They can throw their air pack on and crawl into a fire too. So they're really multifaceted. A little bit about our fire department. We started with the state 4 or 5 years ago, this thing called community paramedicine. And what we entered into in Newport Beach was a concept where we could start taking patients to alternative destinations. So right now, if you call 911 and you're experiencing some sort of medical issue, even if it's really, I don't want to say benign, but if it's kind of a lower acuity, you broke your arm. We have to take you up to Hoag Hospital and dump you into an emergency room where you're going to wait 3 to 5 hours and you're going to get a big emergency room bill. So what we were trying to do at the state level is figure out a way, can we get you over to an urgent care? Can we get you to a clinic, somewhere where they could cast you, x-ray you, and have a smaller bill and keep you out of the emergency rooms? This health information exchange we were the first public agency to go live in the country, where we take our iPads, and you may notice these guys have iPads these days, where they're typing in your information. Well, the iPad's smart enough to know now that if we've gone to your house before, it's pulling that information and it's already shooting it over to Hoag Hospital. So, you know, I've been doing this 25 years, and people tell me I look younger than I am. I feel like I'm 110 years old, but in the old days, we used to have a piece of paper, and it was in triplicate form, and we would write it all down on a clipboard, and we would drive the patient to the hospital. We'd tear off the back, and we'd hand it to the nurse, and then the nurse would try and read it, and she'd say, "What did you write here?" Well, now we're doing it on an iPad, and it's beamed over to the hospital, and before we even get there, they're ready. They have all the information on the patient, and they know when we're going to arrive. So things have changed and streamlined, and it's made it much more effective, and I'll tell you how that works in our benefit, or in your benefit, if you will, as a patient, is our save rate. Sometimes I pause. If you notice I pause, it's because we have so much lingo in the fire service. I try and remember that you don't always know our lingo. So what I have to do is try and figure out how to, I'm getting better at it, Rush, but we call them ROSC. So here's what's going on in my head right now. We call them ROSC, but ROSC is return of spontaneous circulation. So in layman's term, that means we got your heart to start again. And I'm going to use this as an example, actually. Some of you may have read it in the paper, but during the aviation meeting that they had here back in May, a gentleman had a cardiac event, had a heart attack. And we've put AEDs all throughout the city. I think I see one back there in the library. And somebody ran and got an AED, and Aaron Harp, our city attorney, actually put it on and shocked the gentleman. And I was over at a meeting with, where'd Steve go? With Steve Rosansky. Steve, I said, I looked at my phone. I said, hey, there's a CPR going in the friends room. I think I should head down there. I really enjoy this meeting with you, Steve, but I'm going to go to that instead. So I came running down, and a police officer had arrived and was doing CPR, and Aaron Harp was doing CPR, and it was sort of an all-hands-on-deck thing. I started doing CPR, and then our paramedics from the Passion Island station showed up. And anyway, long story short is, we were able to get his heart back through bystander CPR 1 and through the AED, and then our paramedics were able to keep it going. Because once you get it back, it's not like the movies where they pop up and start dancing. It comes back, but you need some cardiotonic drugs, you need some oxygen, you need sometimes intubation. There's all these techniques that we're using. You need that to sustain it. Now we have a problem. You're laying on the floor here, and you need to be over there with a doctor. So there's that gap. So we're able to sustain it. We have 100% sustainability in the year 2019, and these are statistics that are coming from the county of once we get it to return. Let me back up. We have triple the numbers here in Newport Beach of the county and the nation of getting your heart to start back up. So you're 3 times more likely, if you have a heart attack in Newport Beach, to have your heart get restarted by us than you do anywhere else in the county or the nation for that matter. Now, once we get it, we have a 100% rate of keeping it going until you get to Hogue. So think about that for a second. Now we've made the transport, and then because Hogue is so good at what they do, they're nationally known as a cardiac center, their rates of keeping you, so they'll take you into the cath lab, or they'll intervene with whatever surgery it is they feel that is necessary. Your odds and your rate of walking out of Hogue are another 2 to 3 times. And then I know it's on film, so I don't want to be quoted here, but they're at least double the average hospital. So if you look at that whole picture, because of some of the things that we're doing, from our training, our response times, the equipment that we're using, our paramedic ambulances transporting you, owning the call from that carpet right there, because I did CPR right back right about where you are, Ed, over to Hogue, and then Hogue doing their thing, your likelihood of surviving an event is unbelievably higher in Newport Beach. And from our perspective, from a medical professional perspective, when we get those numbers, that's really impressive. So my job, I think, is to help you understand what you're getting for your money and what we're capable of doing. I'm really proud of that. I actually had a hand in that one, but these guys are the ones doing it. So this is where I probably should have slid this slide up earlier, but here's our stations. One's down on the peninsula, one's up here on Lido. This is the one that will be moving a couple blocks south in a couple of years. The one up here on the border of Costa Mesa on Irvine, Balboa Island, Fashion Island, Corona del Mar, and Newport Coast. And then Station 7 up here near the airport. Okay, let me see where I am here. So Matt Brisbois, in full transparency, Matt Brisbois helped me put this slide together. So he thought it would be really, and since we have 2 or 3 more hours to go, I'll take up a little more time. He thought it'd be good to show you some pictures of some of the things we do. And like Rush said, my dad was hired 6 months before I was born in 1972. So it's all I've known from a public service standpoint. So I get and I understand the fire service, but I also understand that not everybody else does. So I'm a pretty patient, easygoing guy, but I've poured my heart and soul into this profession, and when people come up and say, hey, did you pet your Dalmatian today, or did you, what else did they say? Did you have a good game of checkers or whatever? I've learned to not be offended by that, because I get that we hand you a book when you're a 4-year-old and say this is what firefighters do. They slide down their pole and they pet their dog, but that isn't what we do. We do a lot of things. So these are fires just here in Newport Beach. Or actually, this one was Irvine Terrace, but believe it or not, we have more fires. So we have the Wildland Fire risk right now coming up September, October. That's when the Santa Anas kick up. We have one out in Riverside County, Murrieta area right now. And I'll get into that in a second, because we do respond to those as well. But residential structure fires. So we have, here's the, you may remember this one over here on the left with Bay Club. This one's kind of interesting. So a trash truck. That was, for those of you that remember Chief Duncan, I took this picture on my iPhone. That was his son's first day on the job. Actually, it was his first week. And he had to take a ladder and dive into the back of a smelly trash truck. So what happens is sometimes they're just dumping trash, and if somebody has hot coals or something like that, and it just kind of festers in there, and now you have a trash truck on fire. We actually have more residential fires in the wintertime. Makes sense if you think about it. That's when the Christmas tree fires start. That's the electrical, the heaters. People are buttoning up. They're cooking a little more typically. You'd think heat, summer, fire, but it's more in the wintertime, which is good, because in the summer we're dealing with our beach population and our lifeguards and the people out there. So it's kind of this cyclical, interesting year-round where it really keeps us busy. There isn't a downtime. These are some of the pictures that guys have taken over the years. This was down in Carlsbad, so this is a strike team. That's our strike team leader, a chief vehicle right there where my red light is. This one was my last strike team. I took that. Going up the side of a mountain last August up in the Mendocino fire. So that's, to date, this was the largest fire in the state of California. That we had some of our fire engines up there. I said I would revisit it. We just took delivery of a fire engine from the state of California called OES, which is the Office of Emergency Services. And that engine will get deployed out to these fires in really no different fashion or staffing or work than we're already doing. But the good news is, if you look at these, they're very nice fire engines that we have here in Newport Beach that are your tax dollars. So we're going to take this old engine from the state and drive that up to places and beat that thing up, because when these come back, they're usually pretty beat up. So the state does reimburse us for some of the nicks and tires and things that go into it, but that's one piece of equipment that the state is giving agencies to say, here, we'll give you a fire engine, because we know that you're going to be coming, anywhere from San Diego to San Francisco. We go all over the place. So our people do deploy on that. I know that's becoming a little more prevalent these days, and you probably understand that, but just know that they'll go away for a week or two sometimes. I was up at the last one for 16 days, so it's not unheard of. The boat fires, Tim, was that you that asked me earlier? So this comes up often, and we've been talking about the harbor and how to deal with the harbor. And as you know, so if you look right here, that's a Newport firefighter. I could tell by our turnouts and helmets, and they're a little bit dirtier. Those guys standing back there are the sheriffs. So they have their boat, and the pump capacity on that boat isn't exactly where we would like it to be, but it is what it is right now. We contract with the sheriffs, and we utilize their equipment. You can see down over here, we utilize their boat and their equipment to fight boat fires. So the question earlier was, can we get a fireboat here? Can we staff it here? Could we do a better service here? Those are all things that Chief Duncan was looking into, and I know when Duffy got on the council was important to him, and I'll be tasked with looking into it as well. How we staff it, there's a law enforcement component to it, so police would, certainly have to be a part of it. Do the sheriffs stay forever? Do they eventually fade away? I don't know. Those are issues that are way above my head. But I do know that when we do get a boat, I would like it to have a better pump capacity so that we could do a better job with these boat fires. I put that in there, technical rescue. So that's Newport Coast. We had a little issue several years ago on Newport Coast with these trucks tipping over right at the bottom of Newport Coast, and they're turning onto Coast Highway. There were about a half a dozen of them for a while. I'm not sure what was going on there, but you can see here, trying to get people out of vehicles like that can be challenging. So we have cliff rescues over here, water rescues. You might remember that one. That was on the Channel 7 News. A dog went up the side of a cliff and couldn't go up any further, but also couldn't go down. So our guys got up to the top and utilized a rope rescue system, and that's them. That was live. That was pretty neat. We actually got an award for PETA on that one, too. Saved a dog. So this one, we work hand in hand with our lifeguards. You can see the lifeguards here. People walk out to the rocks, the tide comes in, and suddenly they're stuck. All of our Newport Coast area, we have rescues out there. People go for hikes, they go for bike rides, they do different things, and they get injured, or they have heat stroke, or break a collarbone. We have to figure out how to get them out. You might remember this one. This one was 2011. This is the kid from Virginia that dug a tunnel down into the sand. He went down about 6 feet, and the sand collapsed on him. That was a really impressive. In fact, Kevin, is that you? Did he leave? I was just looking at this last night. So this kid, this was like talk about a needle in a haystack. I want to say we got lucky, but we actually, believe it or not, we train on this. So the lifeguards have a system where they have these cylindrical devices where we have to move the sand, and if you think about it, you move the sand, you can only do so much before it just starts to come back in. So we had to create these rings where we moved it out and create a pile, and then there was a separate section of people that were moving that out. So we move it out, move it out, move it out. So this was a very complicated rescue. You could see a guy way down there. Anyway, we pulled him out, and he was hypoxic, he was blue, he was limp. By all accounts, he was almost dead, and I know that sounds kind of sensationalized, but he was, I can't believe he was alive, actually. But we got him out, and we flew him out. I think it was Good Morning America flew him out to do an interview because he lived in Virginia. He was just here visiting. And that one was really impressive. But that one goes to show, and I'll point out that it was on the beach, obviously. So we had our units on the beach get there. We had Huntington Beach come from that way, and we had Costa Mesa come in. So he was lucky where he was located. We were able to get the resources there because that one just was labor intensive. So our lifeguards, you guys are familiar with our lifeguards and what they do. Here's some stats on the lifeguards. 10 million beach visitors, 4,000 plus ocean rescues, 118 boat rescues, 6,500 medical aids. You know, one of the things that they're dealing with are the stingrays. With the warmer water and the weather's been warmer the last few years, there's a lot of stingrays and people are getting hit. So we built this stingray station. And it's this concrete little area where we created a drain that actually doesn't flow to the ocean, or it doesn't flow into, you know, the water systems or anything like that, because they get bit by a stingray and people are bleeding and they're in pain. And I know it sounds kind of like a minor injury, but it's a major injury if you've ever been bit by a stingray. So these guys are dealing with those. Our terrain, our water terrain is pretty difficult here in certain parts as well. So they do dive rescues. They teach CPR, and I think I left this part out. Another push that I'm making is our community involvement with teaching CPR, bystander CPR. So I just saw Matt walk in with our CERT team is going out, and they're a force multiplier for us because our paramedics and firefighters with our CERT people are getting out and training all the city employees, or training homeowners associations, or training local schools, and that's what we have a lot of our lifeguards. That's what the picture is up here. Lifeguards go to Newport Harbor, and do they go to CDM as well, Matt? I know they're going to the high schools and they're teaching that. So if somebody can do a couple of minutes of bystander CPR before we arrive, there again increases your odds of survivability, which takes me right into the CERT program. I would love to have Matt come up and talk a little bit about CERT, but then we would be here till tomorrow night's dinner too. So we only have till tonight, right, Rush? So I think I'm actually at the end, so I don't want to, I don't want to go over, and you wanted to leave some time for questions. I think I'm being pulled off. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Well, as you can see, so many of our city operations and functions seem so simple from the outside looking in, but they are quite complex, and thank goodness for all of us, quite successful operations. In many ways, everyone looks to Newport Beach while we're watching television. But anyway, thank you, Chief, and we appreciate your efforts and your work, and we appreciate your department showing up. So, thank you. Yeah. Now, it's now my responsibility once again, like it or not.
Get out of here. So, thank you. Yes, thank you. So just quickly, I know we ran a little over, but I have a few other meetings coming up that I'm sure you're going to want to hear about. So first I'll mention this Saturday here at City Hall up on the Civic Green in the Community Center, we're going to have our Green on the Green Eco Expo. It's the Chamber's expo that we do every year. But more importantly, we are partnering, where's Matt? Is he still here? With Matt, and Matt's head of the CERT team, the CERT program here in the city, as the chief just mentioned. And so they're going to be having their CERT expo as well at the same time we're having our expo. So you can come get ready for disaster, or learn about disaster preparedness and all kinds of things there. We're going to have a lot of businesses and organizations out on the lawn. More importantly, if you have e-waste that you want to get rid of, so TVs or old computers, things like that, we're going to have a company there collecting all that. So just bring it down to City Hall and you just pull up your car and open your trunk and drop it off. It's very easy. Or if you have documents that you want to get shredded, legal stuff or has social security numbers or credit card numbers, you can bring that as well. We're going to have a document shredding service there. And if you have kids or grandkids, we're going to have a petting zoo. So bring the family. All right? It's going to be a lot of fun. That's from 11 to 2 this Saturday on the Civic Green. Next week after that, 9/18, we're going to have our business education lunch. I don't think we have the location yet, but our speaker is going to be, it's going to be Fleming's? Okay, Fleming's. And our speaker is going to be Gerard Witter. Gerard's been the general manager of the Fashion Island Hotel for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. It's been a long, in hotel manager years, that's a long time. It's kind of like dog years. But he's going to be talking, literally, especially if you work for the Irvine Company. They're tough. But Gerard, they're a 4-star hotel, and he's going to be talking about how to give high-level service to whoever you're working with, any of your clients. Our fearless leader here, Rush, will be heading up well, actually, you won't be. You're going to be gone. So I guess I'll be, as usual, doing his work for him. Government Affairs Committee meeting, where our Utilities Director, Mark Vukovic, is going to be our speaker. He's going to be talking about the new water rates that they're proposing. We haven't had a rate increase in water rates for, I think, 10 years or something, and cost of water has been going up, plus we need to service our infrastructure. So he's going to be talking a little bit about that. Again, another fire and lifeguard event is our annual Fire and Lifeguard Appreciation Dinner. That's going to be at the Marriott Hotel on September 19th. I'd tell you to sign up, but we're sold out. So it's a good thing. We are taking a list of people who wait list. So if you are still interested, call the office. But we literally sold out that event 2 or 3 weeks ago. Got 30 tables and 30 sponsors for each of those tables. If you have a business that has 5 to 50 employees, you have a new requirement now under state law that has to be satisfied by January 1st. All of your supervisors need to have 2 hours of sexual harassment training. And a lot of businesses don't know about this, and they're going to get caught, especially as we get closer to the end of the year, and people are going to try and, or find out about it or try and fulfill that requirement. So the chamber, for chamber members only, is offering sexual harassment training. Our next class is going to be September 25th, and we do it at the Lot Theater. If you've ever been to the Lot Theater, you know it's like super deluxe. I mean, if you got to do any kind of training, that's the place to do it, because you kick back, you push the seat up, they're totally cushy, you could probably fall asleep and nobody would know. And sit there for 2 hours and we'll give you the certificate. And you get a coffee and a pastry from their restaurant there as well. It's $15, and you can sign up online. Our next mixer, chamber mixer, we've had a great series of mixers. We were at the Balboa Bay Resort 2 months ago. Last month we were at Nobu. And this month we're going to be at the rooftop at Lido House. So if you're wanting to join us for that, please do. Mixers are from 5:30 to 7:30. If you're a member, it's free. If you're thinking about joining the chamber and you contact us, we'll put you on the guest list. Otherwise, it's $35 at the door. Another big event that we have this month is our 59th annual Corona Del Mar Sandcastle Contest. That'll happen at the beach in Corona Del Mar. Probably have about 25 sandcastle building teams. We're going to have a sponsored sandcastle that we'll have constructed on Saturday before. It's a lot of fun. The Bubble Lady will be there. We'll be serving food and stuff and music. So bring the whole family. The sandcastle building will be from 10 to 2, and then we'll be judging from 2 to 3, and then we'll give the awards out. And there are trophies, cool sandcastle trophies and checks for the winners. One of our premier events of the year is our economic forecast, and that'll be on October 23rd this year at the Balboa Bay Resort. We've got a great lineup of speakers. We've partnered with the Paul Mirage School of Business over at UCI. Alberto back there is our liaison with them, and thanks to UCI, we have Chris Schwartz from the Center for Investment and Wealth Management as our forecast speaker. We have another gentleman who's going to talk about, I'm blanking on his name. Actually, I think I have the flyer here. Hang on. Yeah, Bill McBride, sorry. Bill McBride, he has a blog called Calculated Risk, And he is an expert in real estate and the economy, and so he'll be talking about Southern California and what we can expect. And then our keynote speaker, you may recognize his name, Dr. Richard Afable. Dr. Afable was the president of Hoag Hospital for a number of years, and then he became president of the Hoag St. Joe network. And last year he was president of the California Hospital Association. So very well-respected man, probably the premier hospital executive in Orange County. And he will be talking about what medical care is going to look like in the future. With all the talk about recession and about single payer and all these other things floating around, and all these candidates running around talking about different ways to provide medical care. Should we have Obamacare? Should we have our own private insurance? What should we do? All these things will be talked about at the forecast. It's $65 to attend. It's a bargain. Most other forecasts are $165 if you go to the Chapman forecast or the Orange County Business Council forecast, and I think we have a better lineup. And then last but not least, I have another note here, 11/6. Oh, it's our Navigate meeting. So if there's anybody here under 40, you're welcome to join us. And even if you're not, you can welcome to join us. I know a few of you have been here. To our Navigate Young Professionals group, we're going to be having, I think it's at Water Grill, right? Did we decide on that? Or? Well, it's looking like it might be at Water Grill, but we're going to have a class on dining etiquette. And so everybody wants to know, what fork to use, and is this my bread dish, and is that my glass of water, and how do I eat soup, and things like that. Well, we're going to be teaching all of that. So I don't know the price yet. We're still kind of working it out. We're looking for some sponsors for that event too to kind of keep the price down. But it should be a lot of fun. And I think that was one of the first things I went to when I became chamber president 6 years ago. So it's probably about 6 years since we've done that class. So if you're interested in that or any of these events, you can always find them on newportbeach.com. If you're not a chamber member, you should be. Sign up now. Thank you and have a good month.